Hello friends, would literally die if it wasn't for the existence of microwaves here, bringing you another Dota 2 video in which we're going to be talking about the most successful strategies for winning the draft in pubs. I'm going to cut right to the chase with this one. You might be a great Dota player, but your MMR might be terrible if you aren't respecting the draft enough in your pubs. Good players have strategies for drafting, even outside of competitive. Like it or not, this is a crucial part of the game. And this is more so true with the new draft order that was introduced in the recent patch where people now pick at the same time. Why? Because if you don't have any sort of smart strategy during the draft, it'll basically be random who wins now, because it's no longer as simple as counterpicking your lane anymore. With that being said, let's get right into it. The first strategy that I'd like to talk about is the Mario pick strategy. This is a strat that, of course, has been named after one of the most famous video game franchises of all time, Luigi's Mansion. In case you weren't aware, Luigi actually has an annoying, more boring older brother called Mario, who is basically not shit at things, but also not good at things. In Dota, Mario picks are heroes that will do pretty good things regardless of the type of game that they're in. Heroes in Dota are so versatile that, honestly, there's a good amount of these heroes. So I've broken this category into a few subcategories. First, you have the heroes that have some way of doing fine in their lane, even if their lane really sucks. In the offlane position, these are usually going to be your creep cutters. For example, if you get counterpicked by some lane dominator like Ursa or Monkey King on Axe, you can just cut the wave at the tier 3, and you're of course always going to get farm because you're getting every single wave. Then in the mid game, Axe is a generic stunning hero, so you can't really counter him there. In the middle lane position, these heroes are usually the ones that can go push the wave and jungle. Shadow Fiend comes to mind as one of the more prominent examples of mid lane Marios. If the enemy team picks a Templar Assassin to counter you on SF, you just double raise the wave and go jungle. Worst case, you'll farm just about as much as the TA. The second subcategory are heroes that play for the mid game and don't really care too much about the laning stage. In the offlane, Pangolier is definitely one of these heroes, because you can get behind, get level 6, and then just go own people with your ultimate in another lane and come back from a really rough laning stage super quickly. In the 4 position, Earthshaker is a classic Mario. Honestly, he's just a fissure and a body for the laning stage, but then he gets a blink and Earthshaker becomes a god, no matter what the game. This is a particularly easy subcategory to pick if you're a core player, because based on the draft, you'll usually see a few enemy picks, and you can make sure that your hero is good at least against a few of their heroes in the mid game. The third subcategory of heroes are ones that just combo really well with your team. It's impossible to get countered if you're compounding your hero's strength with another hero. For example, if you pick Omni plus OD, it doesn't really matter if Omni gets destroyed by a Monkey King or Slark in lane, because the Omni plus OD combo is so strong that OD will pop off regardless of how well Omni's game is going. The pro of this strategy is that you basically don't have to think about drafting at all. You just have to learn how to play these heroes, pick them, and play normally. The con of this strategy is that it's consistent, but you'll very rarely have free games because you're picking like this. This is more of a slow and steady MMR climb sort of strategy, as opposed to here's how to gain tons of MMR really quickly. How do you counter Mario picks? Pick cheese. Mario picks are often equipped to deal with regular Dota, but absurd, irregular Dota, they cannot deal with that. Some crazy hero like Pudge, Techies, or Broodmother can completely throw a wrench into some normie draft. The next strat that we're going to talk about is the Cancer last pick strategy. This is a classic strategy that basically everybody that's watching this video will probably be very well aware of, especially because this strat has been abused by boosters and smurfs for years. The strategy is simple. Wait until the very last pick and pick some sort of cheese hero that will completely take over the game if uncountered. Shockingly, this exact strategy being complained about is exactly why Valve implemented the new pick order where both teams pick at the same time. But this change somehow only made the problem worse, with the last pick cheese heroes having their win rates skyrocket directly after this patch. Some examples of these last pick Cancer heroes are Meepo against no AoE, Huskar against no burst damage, and Broodmother against no Spiderling killers. The pro of this strategy is that it will lead to some of the absolute easiest games that you have ever played. In fact, a lot of people will just give up against these heroes the moment the game goes south because they don't want to play and exert more effort into a losing battle. The con of this strategy is that it makes Dota really, really boring. And I don't say that as a dig at people who like to do this. I mean, in Gaben's name, I like to do this. But the reality is, we're all human. If we enjoy doing something, we will put a lot more effort into doing it well. And there's plenty of science to back that up. But this strategy, unlike some of the others that I'm going to mention, isn't just available to any given hero. There's usually about 3 or 4 last pick cancer heroes, max, that are viable in a given patch. On top of that, when you are a last pick cancer hero, there's a lot of pressure on you to win the game single-handedly. And that's something that's very difficult to do if you're bored as hell. And now we finally get to the question that is no doubt on the tip of everybody's tongue. What do dogs dream about when they're sleeping? Next, we get to the question that relates to this topic. How do you counter last pick cancer heroes? 1. Swap heroes with your teammates to give a better hero against the cancer hero more farm priority. For example, if you're an Ember Spirit mid with a Lina position 4 and the enemy team last picks Huskar, you can swap Ember to 4 position and Lina to mid and dumpster the Huskar in lane. Another method is to play the game unconventionally. In the exact same scenario, if your Lina is a dumbass and refuses to swap with you, then you can start with Boots and cut the mid wave as Ember versus Huskar instead of just getting dumpstered normally by playing the lane against him. The bottom line is that last pick cancer heroes tend to have a very rinse and repeat win condition. Huskar wins lanes, so don't lane against him. Meepo gets really farmed in the jungle and 1v5s, so block his camps with sentries and kill him in the jungle. Next, we get to a far more interesting strategy that's always been a bit of a thing, but it's really only now starting to gain mainstream popularity because of the change in the pick order. And that strategy is the JEBAIT pick. For this strategy, what you do is you pick a hero that is traditionally played in a particular position with the intent of baiting the enemy team into crappy picks around your hero. To give you a simple example, you could first pick Invoker with the intention of playing it as a position 4, bait out an enemy TA pick, then pick a Batrider or Venomancer against the TA and completely ruin her game. Even if the enemy team doesn't necessarily counterpick your hero in lane, often they'll counterpick you for the game because you're giving them some sort of information to work with instead of nothing. So, as long as your team doesn't pick heroes that also get countered by the same heroes that counter yours, you'll get a huge draft advantage, especially if you're playing a hero with low farm priority. For example, you might pick a Batrider, then the enemy team counterpicks you with a Phantom Lancer, Oracle, and Legion Commander, all who completely dumpster Batrider. Then you run the Batrider as a position 5 and pick an Earthshaker offlane. All of a sudden, you have the easiest Earthshaker game ever, and an extremely hard PL, Legion Commander, and Oracle game because Earthshaker counters all 3 of those heroes, and Batrider position 5 doesn't really care if he's countered. The pro of this strategy is that if you're comfortable with a hero and you don't mind getting countered, then you are typically going to give your teammates extremely easy games. The con of this strategy is that you are giving your team an easy game, but you're relying on them to carry you because it's quite hard for you to carry from a countered position. So, this strategy is definitely for people who are comfortable on heroes and also patient with teammates. Of course, if you queue with friends, then this is a dank strategy. How do you counter JEBAITs? Look at people's profiles. See if you can determine what role they usually play. Also, don't overcommit to countering enemy drafts. Cover your bases, of course, but make sure that you're picking generally good heroes as well as what counters theirs. Make sure you've got some stuns, some teamfight, and you're covering all of your bases. Finally, we have my current favorite picking strategy, the new meta pick. This strategy is relatively self-explanatory. You simply pick something that's so new that people don't really know how to counter it yet. To give you an example, at the start of 7.26c, a lot of intelligence offlaners were starting to trend with a decent pick rate and good win rates. These were really nice to pick in games because the current carry meta was largely based around counterpicking these melee strength offlaners, so people were picking melee carries like Slark or Monkey King to completely dumpster these strength heroes in lane. But what does a Monkey King do to a Death Prophet or a Queen of Pain? Absolutely nothing. And a Slark? Sure, against Queen of Pain he can purge the dagger, but Quap is still a ranged hero versus Slark. You can just right-click him in that matchup and win the lane. So, in order to execute this strategy, you can, of course, feel free to experiment with heroes, but you might lose MMR in the process of figuring out what's good and bad. So, what's the solution? Let somebody else lose MMR figuring it out for you. The way that I find these new meta strategies is to go to Dota2ProTracker.com and do two things. One, sort by win rate and look for heroes that have a high win rate, average pick rate, and that aren't getting picked up in your pubs. Two, look at individual players in your favorite role and look to see what they're experimenting with, and if you like that hero, give it a try. The pro of this strategy is that this might be the single greatest way of gaining MMR with the draft, because you'll be picking the overpowered stuff before anybody else gives it any respect, which means the games will be incredibly easy. The con of this strategy is that it requires a huge amount of due diligence and research, and also that these underrated heroes, if they're good, very quickly become the meta. So you need to be a fast learner and stay ahead of the curve. How do you counterpick these new meta picks? It's honestly pretty hard. That's why this is one of my favorite strategies. But basically the only thing that you can do is not disrespect any pick. Do you see a Techies mid? Consider getting a Necro book instead of ignoring the fact that the hero exists because you think that Techies mid is a crappy hero in a crappy role. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support your boy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for the YouTube algorithm. I realize everybody says that, but not everybody is eating pizza crusts out of the local garbage bin from Domino's. If you would like, comment, and subscribe, maybe I could afford pizza crusts from the local Papa John's, because the hobos there actually are a lot more violent, and I'm probably going to need to pay them in order to eat those pizza crusts and drink their rotten Diet Pepsi cans. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you in another video.